that farewell speech, he says, "As for me, I'm old and gray. I've been your leader from my youth until this day." And he emphasized to the people how they shouldn't fall into idolatry, idol worship. And Samuel threatened them. He said that if you do fall into that, you're going to be subject to foreign invaders. But then he concluded, he said, "Be sure to fear the Lord and serve him faithfully with all your heart. Consider what great things he has done for you." Perhaps my message to you on this final sermon here in this pulpit is pretty much the same as Samuel's farewell sermon. Don't fall into idol worship. That's the first thing I've got to say to you. Don't fall into idol worship. Don't worship the building. It's a nice building. One of the things that Phil said to me after his first visit here, he said, I was impressed by the building. How nice it looked, how well kept it was and is. But don't make it an idol. Don't make it an idol. Don't worship the past either. And don't worship the way things have always been done, because they've always been done that way. Be open to God's leading, as Samuel was open to God's leading all through his life. Honor the past, yes, but embrace the future. If there's anything you take away from this final sermon of mine, take that. Honor the past, but embrace the future. Because I think you've got a great future. I believe this church has a great future of service to God. So don't fall into idolatry. But the second thing I'd like to say is reach out. Reach out. Reach out to one another in the good times. And reach out to one another when one is hurting. When life presents challenges. And you need the strength of the faith community to see it through. So if you're the one having the challenges and the hurts, don't be afraid to reach out to this gathered group. And the gathered group needs to be ready to reach out to those in its fellowship who may be facing challenges in difficult times. But then you also have to reach out. You have to reach out to those who are outside the family of faith here. You know, church growth experts, they say there's only two ways you get into a small church. Only two ways. One, you're born into it. And you know, we've got a lot of people who are born into this church. I know, almost literally. But the only other way you can get into a small church, you have to be adopted. You know, President Putin there in Russia, he may be able to control the adoption of orphaned Russian children by Americans. But he doesn't control your adoption of children of God who don't have a spiritual family and who need one. There's a lot of them out there. Adopt them into the fellowship, into the family. And then be faithful. Be faithful. When the family gathers for worship, when it gathers for mission, when it gathers for fellowship, when it gathers for study and education and learning, when it gathers to conduct family business, be there. Be there. Be faithful. You know, I don't think I could have put it any better than Paul did in the second lesson today. I almost thought that we might rename it from Colossians to Alexandrians. Because Paul is speaking to us, speaking to you in this second lesson. As God's choice, holy and love, put on compassion, kindness, humility, gentleness, and patience. Be tolerant with each other. And if someone has a complaint against anyone, forgive each other, as the Lord's forgiven you. And over all these things put on love, which is the perfect bond of unity within the family of faith. And the peace of Christ must control your hearts, a peace into which you are called in one body, and be thankful people. And the word of Christ must live in you richly. Teach and warn each other with all wisdom, and sing hymns and psalms and spiritual songs. Sing to God with gratitude in your hearts. And whatever you do, whether in speech or action, do it all in the name of the Lord Jesus, and give thanks to God the Father through him. I couldn't say anything more important to you than what Paul has just said to you as he wrote to the Colossians. In my final annual report that I delivered in the booklet, some of you may have even seen it last month, back in November, I referred to what was, I think, one of the most moving speeches that I ever read. I read it first in the 42nd edition of the Army Officer's Guide. Strange place to take a text from. It was given to me as a gift when I was commissioned in June of 1984. And it was the final speech of General Douglas MacArthur, which he delivered to the Association of West Point Graduates in 1962. That's what he said. The shadows are lengthening for me. The twilight is here. My days of old have vanished tone and tint. They have gone glimmering through the dreams of things that were. Their memory is one of wondrous beauty, watered by tears and coaxed and caressed by the smiles of yesterday. Dreams of things that were. Thoughts of people in their time who served this church during the tenure that I've been. And all of those memories, they keep coming back. And if I may take a little detour, when I came, I was blessed in both Hebron and Alexandria by the musicians that each church had at the time. It was Maud Lambert up in Hebron, who'd been playing the organ there many years before I ever showed up in '72 and played it for some years after I was there. And here was Harriet Patton, sitting on that bench years before I ever came, and for a number of years after I was here. And then Bev took over responsibilities at the organ. But I make this little detour to say something about my wife, who has been as much a part of me and as part of my ministry as anything. A woman that I was smart enough, I'd like to think that anyway, to marry.